Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Aleasha Bahr, and this is Introverted Entrepreneur Success Stories. I am a sales coach for introverts, and I create custom sales processes with you that allow you to sign up over 50% of the people you talk to without pain pitching or pretending to be someone else, because they're customized to your personality, service, and audience instead of a one-size-fits-all extroverted sales framework. The idea for this show came from people like you who have the desire to be an entrepreneur, but might let being an introvert hold you back or make you think that you're not cut out for it. So we decided it could be helpful to interview introverted entrepreneurs about their journey, success, and how they feel about sales. Because we found that sales is an unavoidable part of entrepreneurship and often the reason introverts shy away from it. So joining us on the show today is Shannon Hernandez.
Yay!
She is all about the joy in life and business. She's specifically known around the globe for the content personality wheel and expand method. Shannon is the founder of Joyful Business Revolution, where she and her team work with online coaches and consultants, teaching them how to grow their business for good, resulting in more joy, more time off, and more profits with purpose. A sought-after expert in the world of online business strategy, Shannon has been featured on CBS, ABC, Fox, and NBC, and has over 25 years in award-winning curriculum design, working with both the NFL and US military, and she's a master trainer and teacher. When she's not teaching, she's spreading joy and funding projects that impact the world and its people. And she has the most interesting introvert story yet. Thank you so much for joining us, Shannon.
Thank you. What an intro. It's like I needed a drum roll after yet.
Yeah, it was pretty impressive. And I love there's so much about it that is hinting at how things aren't a one size fits all. And definitely your personality plays a part in what's going to work for you in content and as a business owner and as an entrepreneur, which is so much of what we talk about on the show. So I usually ask before starting a business, did you think being an introvert would be an asset or not? But Shannon's story is so different that we are going to start by learning about how Shannon didn't know she was an introvert for a very long time. So can you tell us more about that story?
Yeah. So I'm 45 and I learned I was an introvert at 42. So that was a lot of years of freaking crashing and burning energetically. I've been in business for 10 years. And so the first 7 of those years was true extrovert energy. And I was sharing that I was raised as an extrovert. Now, of course, I didn't know that until I was like, what is going on here? Why do I keep crashing and burning like every other day in this business? And when I really like slowed down and looked into it, I was operating my business as an extrovert, but I was really an introvert. And so we've had to make a lot of changes over the last few years that have resulted in tripling revenue and profit and me bringing on team and working now 3 days a week and having so much free time in my calendar. It's like I'm a new person. So yeah, my parents just, they said all I wanted to do was hang out in my room and read really great books. And they would continue to say things like, you need to have better social skills. You should be out with your friends, go join the sports teams. Like we were just busy. Like there were 4 kids and we were just all enrolled in things nonstop. And I really don't know how I did that shit that I look back at it.
Yeah. And I was saying, this reminds me so much of my cousin. My aunt was definitely an extrovert and my cousin just wanted to sit and read. And it was really hard to see her kind of shamed for that. Like, it sounds like you were like, she literally would be like, why are you so weird? Why don't you want to hang out with people? And like forced her to, join the cheerleading team and, have parties and stuff so that she would be like cool or something. Yeah. My cousin did not care about being cool. Like, nope. Not everybody cares about that. So it was really hard to see her constantly stuffed into this shape that wasn't her. And that is something that introverts were shamed into doing for so long. It's only become recently not bad to be an introvert.
Yeah.
And being an introvert doesn't mean that you don't have social skills. They are not synonymous.
Nope. I'd love to know, do you agree? The definition I use in my community is, and I think it's the most widely accepted definition of an introvert, even though people don't get it, is an introvert needs alone time to replenish. That is like the full definition of introvert. It has nothing to do with being shy. It has nothing to do with not wanting to be on a stage. It has nothing to do with liking people or not. We just need time away from people to like recharge.
Yeah, that's definitely the biggest one that I think matters for entrepreneurs in business. And it for me, definitely, I have to be very vigilant. And I think that's leads to the things that make introverts feel like they're not made for entrepreneurship, because the idea of doing the things that we associate with starting a business seems so draining, like seems so daunting. You don't want to do them. I don't know if everybody connects it. Like the reason that they don't want to do it is because it's exhausting. They just are like, I don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, do you think that maybe they don't connect it all the way and they're just like, I don't like it. But the reason they don't like it is because it's exhausting. What do you think?
I mean, I think it might depend on where the person may be on their journey, because, you know, my business has changed so much over 10 years, just from a team standpoint, having systems in place, being able to take a lot of time off, not starting my days till noon, whatever that is. But I couldn't even fathom any of that when I was starting, because when you're starting, you do have to do a lot of it yourself, and it is exhausting, right? So, I also don't have a framework and a reference point for being an introvert at the beginning of my journey, because I was just like, oh, sales. All right, I'm going to freaking figure out sales and we're going to do it. And we did it. Right. But as I kind of transitioned into more of the introvert energy, I had to go back and redo a lot of things. So, it could be a matter of they're overwhelmed by all that has to get done. If they're maybe a little longer in their journey, you know, they maybe have a team, even a team of 1 or 2, or they're looking at growing a team. I think the great question to ask is, what now can we take off the plate that somebody else can do that is better suited for their energy? And that's kind of like how I've continued to grow and evolve.
Which is a great way of putting it, and a great way of them thinking of it from the beginning. And you're right. Like in the beginning, you just do kind of everything. I do. So I define the introvert definitely by energy level, but also usually we're so drained by small talk. We need like deeper conversation.
Yeah.
And being like real, that authenticity is like, when you're fake, it's like, you just don't have the capacity for it for very long. And also a lot of introverts are, internal thinkers. I am actually a verbal processor. Like when I talk things out, I get way farther than when I'm alone in my head. And I think it's like a spectrum, right? Nobody's like 100% in one direction or the other. But the fact that a lot of introverts have to think first makes them feel really scared of sales and talking to people and marketing. They're like, oh, I'm on the spot. Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you have that?
I definitely, so I used to say as an extrovert, I didn't think about shit. I just like plowed through life. As an introvert, first I was like, oh, I'm a thinker, but I'm definitely not. I'm an INFJ. So I actually have to feel the right answer. The thinking comes later, but I will know if it's the right answer in my body. Like I have to feel it, and then I can move forward. So that's interesting, because there are people, like I have someone on my team and she's whatever TJ. So she's the thinker. And I continually go back to her and say, Amy, how did that feel for you? And she can't answer the question. Like we're speaking like alien language, and she'll come to me and she'll say, what do you think about that? I'm like, I have to feel it first. I'll get back to you once I can feel into it. So there's a lot of like parts that make up our personality, I think. And that's probably a very interesting thing as we go on a business journey and learn to do sales and grow our businesses and get a strategy that works right for us, is we really have to know ourselves. And if anything's going to do that to you, it's business ownership.
Yeah. Or some people like just ignore it for a long time, but it's definitely at their expense to do that. So, and some people think like, oh, you're thinking about it too much, but it's like the growth you've seen in your business by quote unquote, thinking about it too much. Obviously you weren't, and it needed to be thought about. And it wasn't like my whole life, people have told me you read into things, like you're over analyzing, you know, and I realized it's just that I have an intuition that I should listen to. So it's so interesting that, you know, for years, people were like, you have to be this one way, this one extroverted way that is like oblivious to anything that you could pick up on that's not verbally said. Everything else, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
and there's been a lot of studies done too, right? That the people for a very long time, and I would venture to say it's probably still true in more corporate settings. It definitely, I was a teacher for 15 years. I taught the crazy 8th graders. Like, I don't know how I did that shit. Like now that I look back on it.
Right before, that's a delicate time. They're like high puberty, highly insecure.
Yeah. All the things. But you know, so many of the leaders and teachers, if you will, if you had like the extrovert, outgoing, could do the small talk around the water cooler and could smooze with the principal or the boss, like they were the people who got the recognition and the promotions all the time. And I'm just now remembering, like, one of the things my dad used to say to us all is the squeaky wheel gets the oil. So you better speak up for yourself, and you better do the politicking in the office, and you better do this. And I was just like, I don't want to do any of that shit.
Yeah.
It's not what, like, it didn't feel good to me. Right.
Office politics were never my thing. I was a squeaky wheel, but I didn't play a game.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is what I need. Is it possible? And they were like, no. And I was like, I gotta go then. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's not gonna work.
Yeah.
Which is unusual for people. They usually like sit in it, but that's an entrepreneur thing. I think like if you are not okay with being unhappy, but making money, then you're probably an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs are like, no, I want to make money and be happy. Like I don't have to sacrifice one or the other. And like, so that's like a separate topic, but I am interested to know, when you said that you were running your business like an extrovert and the processes were extroverted, what do you mean exactly?
So how did it show up, like my extrovert energy?
Like how did you, what does that look like to run things like an extrovert? Does it mean that you're just like spending more hours doing things, or what is it exactly?
So, you know, when I think about how I was doing things, the best way I can explain it is I felt like I was had to be on all the time. And it's exhausting. And, you know, my calendar was crowded. I'm great at sales, but they exhaust me. Sales exhausts me. And it's not because I'm not good at it. And it's not because I don't like talking to people. They just exhaust me. So 2 years ago, I was like, I'm hiring an extrovert to do this shit. Like this is the next evolution. Right. And she's great at it. She's fantastic at it. And I do jump in when she's on vacation, and I do like queue up the calls for her. If I'm in a networking event, and somebody says, hey, I'd love to talk to you. I said, well, you're going to talk to Amy. Like we've had to learn this kind of magical blend. But one of the things I was doing is I was doing like, there were two main things, I think, as an extrovert, or three. One, I was doing a lot of traveling and speaking on other people's stages, which it is like a superpower of mine. And I can close a room like nobody else with a 45-minute speech. Like that's just who I am as a person. It's probably those years of teaching, right? And learning how to have to control kids in Harlem in 8th grade, like looking at me all day long. But that had a toll on me because I didn't have enough time to regroup. I wasn't putting the time in my calendar. So what it looks like then was travel, speak, be in the audience, be with the people, go out to dinner, do all the things, get very little sleep, come home, and it's Monday. We're going. Like what it looks like now is I travel once a quarter. I land the day before. I leave the day after. When I'm done with people, I don't give a shit. I am out of there. Like I am in the hot tub. I am in my room. I am taking a break. I'm not going to dinner with people every single night. I love eating dinner by myself. I know it's an introvert thing, right?
I can't do that like dinner and happy hour thing after a long conference. I do not know how people do that.
No. And the other thing I had to start doing is negotiating the speaking contracts to not have a table. And people are like, what do you mean you don't want a table? And I'm like, I'm not standing at a table doing small talk to get people to stand at my table, or everyone starts with small talk. Like it's exhausting. So I just negotiate out of the sponsor table every single time. They're like, that's fine. Like I just started asking for what I needed, as an introvert.
So interesting. I didn't even know you could do that. You're right. Like everybody feels very obligated to stand at that table for hours and schmooze people. So you did this for years. Were you just a shell of a human?
Yes, it was. And, that was one thing that I can show the dichotomy of. The other thing I want to talk about is I run online programs. So we would do launches, right? Launches. Oh my God. Launches just crashed me. The whole launch energy, I just kept trying different ways. It didn't work. It was a huge tax on the team. It was a huge tax on my energy. Then you were like all revved up, like your nervous system was shot from the launch, and then you're waiting for the sales. And I was like, I cannot do this shit. So we started going to like mini workshop weeks. We do 3 days in a row where I teach 1 hour. All I do is show up and teach. Amy handles the sales. Amy handles the conversations. Jordan is client concierge. She gets them onboarded. Literally, I am in my zone of genius. I show up and teach for the hour. I make the offer and I hand it off to the team. And it has been like life-changing for the energy of this brand.
That's amazing, because knowing where I love that you're sharing all the different ways that you can do business, and everyone listening might not be familiar with a launch, but it is a ton of work. It's like, you have to go live for 5 days and like have all of these messenger conversations with people. And you have to get a whole bunch of collateral created and presentations, and it is incredibly draining. And then you close the doors on whatever you're doing. So there's like a limited amount of time that people can buy it. So you really have to be on for whatever those days are. And it's so interesting to hear like the alternative ways to do it for introverts. And I hope everybody takes from this that they don't have to do it the way that everybody says that you have to do it.
No.
To be successful. And the more you honor yourself, the more successful you're going to be. And to really listen to that and lean into it and not feel bad about it.
Yeah, totally. We just came off a 3-day, we opened our new offer. It's the Content Personality Club. And, oh my God, I think I had launch trauma, because when we were going into this, I was also like, okay, we're not doing this. We're not doing this. We pared it down so much. And to your point, like, this is what I want to share with the listeners. One of the best questions that I ask myself as the CEO and as the visionary is, how can I make this more simple? Because it can get complicated real fast. So we did not do a workbook this time for the 3 days. We did not do an massive email sequence. We did not use our Facebook group for where we used to have them do homework and put it in and we check it. We took it all out. And I went live and I taught Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for 1 hour. And we had 2 follow-up emails and we had a $40,000 event. And it was the best thing ever. The other thing, to your point, is this whole opening the doors, closing the doors, when we all know that actually doesn't really happen, was really bothering me as an introvert. I'm like, why would people open and close their doors? So we switched our entire model to an open everyday model, where our doors never open and close. They're always open. Just like if you needed curtains for your new house, you would go to the store when it's open and you would buy the curtains, right? Like I just quit playing the games that I was seeing all around me and just said, how's this actually work in the real world, right? Like, let's just actually simplify it all. And it has been so amazing.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, what I'm hearing is like authenticity. Like you did what felt authentic to you and authentic to your business, and you've been rewarded for it. And I always look at those other strategies and I'm like, who's attracted to that? You know, like also the people that are like, I call them Lambros. They're like, oh, you know, look at my car. Oh, just made this much money, like off my clients and whatever. And the people who are attracted, they get a ton of business. They get a ton of business, but I don't think that those are our people, and that's okay, who are going to be their clients. Like you're going to attract the clients you want when you show up authentically.
Exactly. And that just brings into a whole question of how do you be more authentic, is you have to know your values and what you stand for. And, oh, for the love of God, put them in your marketing. Like, call in your people with the values. If you love to travel, talk about it. If you love good food and wine, talk about it. If you're a family first person, talk about it, because you are going to have such amazing aligned clients just because they're like, oh, I like to travel. Oh, I put my family first. Oh, I'm a foodie. Like that has been like such a fun place too. And as an introvert, I think it's interesting because it actually allows us to go deeper with our marketing and our content and pull in those clients who they're not on the surface, right? None of us are operating on the surface as an introvert. And if you keep talking about surface level things, one, you're missing your people, and two, you're missing a beautiful opportunity to build relationships, like really deep relationships with amazing people.
Which is what introverts thrive on. Thrive. Yes. Extroverts do not thrive on that. They don't really want to go deep usually. I mean, there are different kinds of extroverts, of course. But like just stereotypically speaking, they want to talk about the weather and like have a great conversation about, you know, a grilling recipe or whatever. My brother-in-law is an extrovert and he can talk forever about recipes. And it's just the best time for him. We're like, we want to talk about like real stuff.
Like what's going on, brother, in your soul? Like,
yeah. And he's like, why are you asking that? Like, I don't want to think about it. Like, I'm just having a good time.
Yeah, kind of exactly.
So what were you most concerned about before becoming an entrepreneur?
Oh, well,
I was an introvert yet, so it was probably something different, but it's still scary. The whole thought of starting business.
I was a teacher and I was scared that, I mean, this is probably a fear for everyone, but like, how are you going to make money if you don't have a paycheck? Right? Like that was a fear. That was probably my biggest fear. My whole life really I just wrote a book called Practical Joy. So, it'll be, you know, it's still at the editing phase, but the point of this is that my whole childhood there was no focus on joy. It just wasn't part of the conversation, but I was a joy seeker. And the part of this being forced into extroversion type parenting that happened was not helping me find joy. So it made me even reinforce that need of searching for joy and really like living this joyful life. And when I left teaching, the reason I left is because it wasn't joyful anymore for me. That was really, I was not happy. And it wasn't, yes, I was operating like an extrovert still, but I just wasn't happy. Like if they would just let me close my door and teach, I was fine. But it was the politics. It was the school system. It was like all the millions of things that didn't have to do with teaching that actually prevented me from teaching quality education to students. And it was the joy that was the driver at the end of the day, probably more so than the money. And so since I've been in business and we've been helping people here at Joyful Business Revolution is, what is your joy? Where is your joy? Your lifestyle values are tied to your joy. Let's go back and look at your values. Let's get a business model that's aligned with your joy. Let's talk about how you're going to work with clients and do your sales in a soulful, joyful way and do your marketing in a joyful way. And so I think leaving, to become a business owner, the driving force was joy. Little did I know 10 years later, I'd be writing a book on joy. My goal is to be the Brene Brown of joy. Like this is like the new vision for where we're headed. But I'd have to say joy has been the driver for so long for me, even when I didn't have the word for it when I was little.
Yeah. So that reminds me of what drives a lot of people who are really made to be entrepreneurs. It's not so much about the money. It's really like, I need to be fulfilled, but I also want to make a lot of money. So like when you're in a situation, I had to leave corporate because of office politics too. Like I just couldn't stand it anymore. And it was getting in the way of doing a quality job. Like, and I think that a lot of entrepreneurs and introverts, it is a very introverted thing, I think, to be like, I made an impact on this person and it was beautiful. And I did something beautiful. I, created something, or, that like pride in what they do. And that joy comes from doing a good job. And like in corporate, there's a lot of people who take no pride or joy in doing a good job. They're just like, can we just do the bare minimum and get a paycheck, please? So that's kind of like how you know that you're so different in that way. And it's this striving for like, I will not settle, that really does make you so happy. And I saw a funny TikTok the other day about like boomer parents, basically like the people who are around their 70s at this point. And they're like rocking the craziest case of depression. And they just like tell like no interest in diagnosing it or getting better. They're just like, this is life. Life is suffering. If you're suffering, you're doing it right. There was like this way of thinking for so long that like, you just join a company and you're there for 30 years and it really sucks.
Whether you like it or not, like
that's life, and it's like, why was that ever, like you were almost looked down upon for pursuing something different from a life of suffering? Like, hey, something's not right here. So I shouldn't have to deal with it. Wasn't a thing that people were allowed to say or do.
This is like, so my mom had a stroke in September of last year, and I flew home to help my parents. I flew home to help my dad as the primary caregiver from like October. It was way too long. All right. I was there from like October to November, something, 25 days. And, we were sitting at the table at dinner one night. So my mom, what happened with her stroke was short-term memory loss, which was about 4 years until the present. So it's getting a little better, but she, like her mobility and none of that was impacted, but the memory thing has been huge. So anyway, she asked me what my book was about. And I told her because we were all together at a table, my book is about joy and finding your joy. And I can remember this. My dad looked up from the end of the table. He's this baby boomer person you just described. He quit cutting his steak. I remember it was crystal clear. Like it goes silent and he looks at me dead in the eye and he's like, the only time you will have joy, and I hope it's in your book, is when you're dead and you meet your maker.
Oh my God. Like, with total conviction.
I was like, Dad, I literally said, Dad, I do not subscribe to that belief. And this tells me why you're so miserable.
and like, so glad you didn't come off on me.
Exactly. Like that is what I grew up in. That is. So now I'm like the joy advocate of the entire world and family. And my parents do not know how to relate to it all. So much so that I say to them all the time, at least once a week, Dad, what did you do today that brought you joy? He doesn't even want to answer the question. He's like, I don't know about joy. I painted the fence. I went on the tractor. Like, I don't have time for joy. Just keep infiltrating the family with joy is like my number one goal at this point.
Well, it's a beautiful mission. Maybe they can like enjoy their life a little bit.
You
And
would
I know
think
that
so.
that's a little off topic, but like just something that I'm sure that everybody has experienced listening to this. And it's okay to unabashedly seek out your joy, whatever that is, including like, you know, shaping things around you being an introvert, because if you don't, it's definitely not going to bring you joy.
Yeah, and joy in your sales process, joy in your marketing. Like you've got to be willing to explore what that is for you. As we say, just get curious about it, because life's too short for us to be doing anything that's not joyful. Marketing, sales, any of it. Like we can tweak it to do what we want and it will work if it's aligned. We promise you.
It's just not necessary. It's not necessary to do things that aren't enjoyable. So
Yeah.
like, I think that's where people get caught up a lot, is they think it's necessary to get the result that they want, when actually the opposite is true. And so, I mean, talking about sales, you were really good at it, but it was draining. What was draining about it? Was it like the small talk of it, or?
Yep.
Oh,
It was that first 5 minutes.
you were just toast.
I was like, and honestly, more so than that, because I can do small talk because I'll get deeper real fast. Like I think that's a gift we have. It was the amount of time I needed to spend with people. So the initial call, we don't do a one close call. It is not in our values. And a lot of our introverts want to think about it. They want to feel into it. Totally get it. So it was the initial call, then maybe a second call, and then a follow-up, and then a registration call. And it was just like, holy cow, this is a lot of peopling. And while I did it for a long time, and I was scared to hand over sales because our sales were great. And I knew you hand over sales for a while, they're going to tank. Like I knew it. And they did, but now we're on the other side of it. And to have somebody that is just, she's an extrovert, but she's a very aware extrovert. And we have a beautiful, soulful sales script that feels good to us and it feels good to them. On the receiving end. And she doesn't care if she needs to spend an hour now and follow up and spend another 30 minutes and follow up and all, like, she doesn't care. And I'm like, you are so perfect for this job. Like, please just do this. And so that's really how we've transitioned things here.
She probably loves spending the extra time with them.
She does. Yeah.
And that's great. You said aware, because like, that's one of the things that is a real superpower of introverts, is being aware of the other person and how they're responding. And it's so important for sales conversations. And there are ways to structure things. And it sounds like you've gotten there, like structuring your sales framework and everything so that it doesn't feel as, because there are some strategies out there that are very draining for introverts, like the digging into pain one, or agitating pain and talking about how bad your life's going to be if you don't do this. You know the one I'm talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's usually like really brutal. So there are different ways that you can structure things so they're not as draining. But 4-call process, I can see that would just be, but it's going to help convert so many more people. To give them
and that's it. The more we slowed down everything, the better clients we had, and they didn't feel like they were being rushed like in other people's sales calls. And we really led the way years ago with what I call possibility marketing versus pain marketing. So we took out all the pain point marketing and we led with possibility marketing. So the people who shut up, they already knew we weren't going to beat them up with their pain, because we weren't marketing that way. Like we wanted the people who were looking to the future and looking at their vision of what could be possible for them. So I would like to say that as a business growth strategist for the front end of people's marketing and messaging, like transition that messaging from pain to possibility, especially as an introvert, because then you don't even have to do the pain point objection at all.
It is draining. And I'm very much the same way. Sometimes I call it hope selling. It's like painting what's possible. Not that there weren't bad things that happened, but we're going to be on the other side of this and it's going to be great. Now that bad stuff's over. This is what it's going to look like. I can't wait to see it, type of thing. So that's wonderful advice that I'm sure very few people hear, that they can do that in their marketing even. And so last, what do you recommend to other introverts considering becoming entrepreneurs?
Hire a team from the beginning. At
From the
least
beginning?
one person.
Which
one
one?
person,
What
like the
position?
virtual assistant. Find somebody, I mean, outside of a coach, I think you need a good coach or mentor. And on that note, like hire a coach or a mentor who gets you as an introvert. I think that could be like a whole nother thing, like a whole nother discussion. Hire an introvert who has the business that you want. So you make sure that they know how to get you there without crashing and burning. Number one, that's actually my number one. I'm going with that answer.
It's a really good answer.
Yeah.
A lot of mentors out there are very one size fits all instead of custom to you. And it is absolutely at the expense of their clients' results. So having somebody who thinks like you, acts like you, understands you, most people totally forget to look for that. They don't even consider it as a possibility that would hurt their success, actually. So that is such a great point. And you did mention you were worried about like how to make money before you started. Is there a way you offsetted that?
No, I just learned how to do sales and dug in.
Okay. You didn't you didn't do it on the side or have like a little nest egg or?
No, I mean, I quit teaching full time. I quit teaching as a classroom teacher. I did have, I was a professor at Brooklyn College. I did one class a semester. I think it was $800 a month before taxes. So it was not much. And I lived in Brooklyn and, stuff is high there. So if anything, I could say like I had that as a little nest egg, but really what I had was a desire to be joyful and profitable. And that is why we have built this business the way it's been built, is because I was not willing to sacrifice the joy or the profit at the end of the day. And so I just had to get really smart about how we did things here.
Yeah, that reminds me of like, if you feel like you don't have a choice, you're going to make it happen.
Exactly.
We'll make that happen.
Well, my first mentor said to me, because I got scared, right? Like this was in October when I decided I was going to leave. I leave teaching. We built like the little plan, got a great coach. In April, I remember coming home and saying on my coaching call, I need a plan B. Like I'm getting scared. What if this doesn't work? And she said something I have remembered ever since that day. She said, people with plan Bs don't make plan A's work. So do you want plan A to work or do you want plan A to work? And I was like, oh shit. My dad always told me I need to have a plan B, C, D, and E. Like
he probably did, that guy. It sounds like it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I have remembered that and really helped my clients with that when they get into that place of, oh, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. You've got a plan A. Let's do it. Let's work it. It's going to work. It's going to work, right? Got to trust it. And so get rid of those plan Bs, people.
Yeah. You know, what always worked for me is I thought about having to go back to corporate and it just scared the shit out of me enough to like make whatever happened needed to happen. Like I could not fathom doing that again.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Shannon. You have shared so much good information for people who are confused, how they can structure things. Some people who might have felt bad about things that they shouldn't feel bad about, and how to start things from the beginning to avoid some of the pain that we've all experienced. So how can everyone find you?
Yeah, you can find me at joyfulbusinessrevolution.com. Also have a beautiful introvert friendly Facebook group called the Joyful Business Revolution for coaches and consultants. We do a lot of fun hanging out there.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming, Shannon. And thank you everyone for listening. And I hope you feel inspired to pursue whatever is going to be fulfilling and joyful for you as an entrepreneur and as an introvert, because you can do it. You can be really successful. You don't have to compromise anything. So see you on the next episode.